National health insurance. I am skeptical. I'm not sure about this one, guys. So before getting into the reasons why I'm skeptical, I think it's important just to kind of give a brief overview in terms of how we got to be where we are now with the NHI, and now being year 2025, the NHI is now a law in South Africa. It was signed into law on the 13th of May in 2024. And just based on the records that exist sort of in the World Wide Web, it is said that between year 2000 and 2004, there was a health plan that was in circulation, or the ANC was speaking about a health plan. And within that health plan, they seeded the idea of a national health insurance. And then fast forward to 2011, there was a green paper dedicated to the national health insurance. And this green paper basically outlined with more detail how this national health insurance how the ANC would seize the NHI unfolding and an end. And then from 2011 in 2020, the NHI bill at the time was passed in Parliament. From 2020 up to 2024, that is when Ramaphosa signed the NHI bill into law, making it now the National Health Insurance Act. And this was done on the 13th of May, shortly before we went into the general elections, which took place, I think, on the 29th of May of 2024. So the biggest reason for my skepticism is just largely on the propaganda surrounding this particular topic. And healthcare is definitely a sensitive issue, and I'm not definitely approaching this in any way trying to be not non-sensitive, but I just think there's just certain things that I listen to and I look at and I'm like, I'm not sure. And I'm going to tell you the first one, and that is the Cuba healthcare system. The Cuban healthcare system is probably the first reason why I'm skeptical. We know leaders like Aaron Motsoaledi, they praise the Cuba healthcare system. They say, no, it's great, it's wonderful, blah, 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 blah. They reference the Cuba health system because they also have a national health insurance on that side. And if you look at and besides the healthcare system, the ANC is very friendly with the Cuban leaders. They basically are very friendly with the legacy of Fidel Castro. Whenever maybe his anniversary of his passing, they put messages of support, and they support him. I think I've seen footage of Fidel Castro with Nelson Mandela back in the day. So we kind of speaking to people who think alike here. I'm assuming socialism, communism, it's kind of all the same thing. Now, if you look at the Cuban system and how it is portrayed, it's portrayed as though it's a good system. They put health over profit. It's a noble system. And they've got this program now where they send doctors out to go assist and provide healthcare in certain areas. And it's seen as a diplomatic sort of like healthcare system. They're there to help people in need. And it's great and it's good. But at the same time, there's another reality to the Cuban healthcare system, and that is doctors are not paid. They're not paid at all. And there's just been so many doctors who've spoken out when they go in these programs, these missions, when they sent out, where they get there, they realize that they're not getting paid to be on a mission. They are sent there by the government. They're not getting paid. They get there, they find other doctors from other countries who are also sent on a mission. Those doctors are getting paid a lot of money. This one guy was speaking out saying, no, you get told that you're volunteering.
Dr. Rotse Rios Molina participated in the medical mission in Sierra Leone in 2013, where healthcare specialists from around the world came to help contain the Ebola epidemic. The members of the mission were told that when they returned to Cuba, they would be received as heroes and that the government would give them each a new car.
¿Cuánto recibían ustedes en Sierra Leone?
Bueno, en Sierra Leona no recibimos salario.
Nada.
El problema fue que Cuba nos dijo a nosotros que nosotros íbamos voluntarios, porque como era una epidemia tan letal, tan fatal, e incluso que se pensaba que se podía morir gran parte del personal sanitario que asistiera a esa misión, nos dijeron que nosotros íbamos voluntarios, que eso era solidaridad.
Dr. Rio says he did receive a stipend that went to cover his living expenses. Medical personnel from other countries, on the other hand, were generously compensated.
Y resulta ser que todas las personas que estaban allí de otras entidades, por ejemplo, la Organización Mundial de Salud, médicos de España, de Canadá, médicos incluso de aquí de Estados Unidos, de Médicos Sin Fronteras, que estaban ahí trabajando, fueron voluntarios también, pero le pagaban, que era la diferencia. Sin embargo, los médicos de otros países que trabajaron conmigo ahí, que tuvimos la oportunidad de conversar, ganaban $7,000 mensualmente. Quiere decir que se estaban jugando la vida, pero estaban recibiendo una compensación monetaria por lo que estaban.
If it's such a great system, and I always ask myself that Cuba is it's a poor country because of communism. It's a communist, impoverished country because of the policies that Cuba supports, right? There's no other way about it. It's poor because of their policies. And how do we praise their healthcare system when it's a poor country? Because let's say, okay, cool, the doctors are well trained, the doctors are on the ball, the doctors are caring, and they for example, they speak about how Cuban doctors is just an advanced. It's so many doctors in the country that you get a lot of one-on-one care with the doctors. The time you spend with the doctor as a citizen is far more extended because there's a lot of doctors. That's great. Let's say your doctors are the best, but in medicine or in healthcare, I've seen it. I mean, I had raising a young child, a 1-year-old. You are always in and out. It's not just the doctors that make a difference. It's the doctors, and it's also the infrastructure. Imagine if you went to a hospital and there wasn't enough beds and they're treating you or your child while you're sitting on a bench. That would immediately take the experience otherwise. And it's not so much about the experience and your comfort and which I do appreciate that. But healthcare also means with the right infrastructure, the right medicines, the right machines, the right equipment, technology, the doctors can do even better. So that is also another reason why I'm very skeptical. The way in which the Cuban system can be portrayed, it is definitely missing a lot of elements. And they will never tell you the Cuban system is failing. I don't think you'll ever get that from your Aaron Mutuledi, for example. Second reason for my skepticism, it was recently reported that 28 million or so was paid over 3 years, money that was paid over 3 years towards advertising for the national health insurance. And advertising, as someone who is in the marketing field, is when we are trying to persuade an audience, when we put money to sell, we put money basically to buy marketing space, whether it's billboards, TV, to sell a product and try to reel people to buy our product. That's the purpose of advertising or marketing. And if the national health insurance is such a great idea, why is the Department of Health having to advertise and sell it? And of course, we are talking about South Africa here. There's a huge possibility that this 28 million maybe the line item in the invoice said 28 million to advertising, and maybe the money went another direction, because it would explain why this TV ad is cringe. It's not a great quality video that came out of this so-called advertising, apparently.
So rising cost of medical aid, less cover.
Maybe the NHI will be the solution.
Oof, I don't know. NHI seems a bit communist.
That's where you're wrong. Japan, Norway, Canada, Britain, and many other civilized countries have some version of NHI.
Oh, no, I think you're right. NHI is our answer for quality healthcare for all of us. Mm-hmm. Even you, my babe.
Probably the most cringe thing you've seen in a while. I know there's a lot of these, but if that was the video that came out of this marketing advertising campaign spree thing that cost the taxpayer 28 million rand, and of course the concern is not so much, let's say, okay, you're advertising because you want to create awareness and you want people to know NHI is here, whatever. But there's also an issue that doctors are not getting hired. So like I said, this 28 million towards advertising, did it actually go towards advertising? And if it did, why are you advertising the NHI? If it's so great, we should be begging for NHI to be commenced. And that's also just another element where I'm like, this must be propaganda. Aaron Mutuledi has been going from interview to interview, saying a whole lot of things. Global is doing it. Global. In these interviews that Aaron Mutuledi has been going through, what he tends to speak to, and he's not the only one, is that NHI seeks to equalize and basically bridge the gap of inequality whereby now what is it, 80% of the population in South Africa is covered or is not covered by private medical care, and then you've got like a smaller percentage of people who are covered by private medical care. So basically NHI is going to bridge the gap and basically make sure that we're all the same and equalize all of that. Nothing wrong with that, just from that idea alone. However, what I think we also need to be careful about, which is again what I've learned when looking into the Cuban system, is that they sell NHI and present NHI as though it's going to stop the unequal. Because remember, these people are communists, right? They anti-rich, they anti the idea of individualism. They want everyone to be equal. They want to see communism where we're all the same, and which, you know what? So they are now positioning that it's going to basically say the haves and the have-nots are going to be the same, and that's not even how life works. You know, that's not how even it works in the animal kingdom. So whatever this idea of equalizing everyone they're trying to achieve, it's just anti-human nature, and that's the truth. But they position NHI as though it's going to fix that. But what has happened in Cuba is that the ordinary man, the you and me and you, like the ordinary people, they are covered by the national health insurance, which is the universal one. And then within the universal, there's a level higher, which then goes to the elites, which goes to tourists. There's actually been a lot of complaints from Cubans saying no, but then Tina in the ordinary one, we're lacking medicine, we're lacking support, and then the clean one, the one that the elite use, because there's no one, I know for a fact Arun Mutuledi would not use the same hospital as the everyday people. These people don't even live in the same areas that they get majority of their vote or support from. So that's also very, very challenging for me to buy into this, that you selling it as this thing that's going to equalize. First of all, that's not how life works. That's not how human nature works. But it is not actually going to be equal. They're probably going to, in the first 12 months, act like they're all coming to the same standard, they're all getting the same level, and then before you know it, because of time, the queues at the hospital now, it's too much, there's just too many people, shape, it's like how they always do with the blue lights, they cut through traffic because they've got a meeting to run to. You have to move with your little car, you have to get out the way so that they can slide through with their motorcade. So that's precisely what's going to happen. It's happening in Cuba, and I definitely see that possibility happening in South Africa. And speaking of this haves and haves not argument, we must be careful, guys. The same thing with the electricity supply, right? Not related to health, but I'm just trying to prove my point. With electricity supply, fine, government says we'll take control of electricity. Centralization, hi. They take control of the power supply. When they start to have problems, they're like, wait, do not tell us you don't like load shedding. The reason why we've got load shedding is because we expanded this electricity to rural areas when the previous government didn't care about rural areas. And listen, I love the idea of rural communities having electricity. A huge portion of my family is still in rural KZN. I'm happy for that. But I also don't like the fact that my family has to sit through a load shedding. So yes, you might have connected electricity to rural areas, but the problem is still there. So they'll tell you, please don't even dare tell us we extended electricity to rural areas. So why are you complaining about load shedding? Then another argument, they say, no, when it's under the state, it will be cheaper. If you give it to these oligarchs, or whatever they call them, or the profit-driven, the supremacy and whatever, they'll say, no, it's going to be expensive. You won't afford it. These people are profit-driven. Has the price of electricity not increased almost twofold under the same government, under the same state? The same story, the exact same story will come with NHI. Mark my words. They'll say, wait, what are you talking about? That time it's your health. And I also found this interesting opinion piece in the Daily Maverick by Beki Sisa Ngube. Again, it's an opinion piece, so it's not Bible truth, but interesting enough, this article states 6 entities that the government has control over. They basically control the finances of 6 entities. NSFAS, the UIF, Bank, Post Bank, Road Accident Fund, I think, this, did I mention 6? And the stories that exist amongst all of these entities, I think there's one reference where apparently the one of the, I think it's Road Accident Fund, they were paying an invoice to companies, and whatever the invoice said, they were paying double that amount. So if you invoice 6,000, they were paying their suppliers double that amount, which is obviously, we all know what that means. So again, this is the same state that has control. And remember, NHI says we are going to establish a board. The board, there'll be a CEO, and they'll make sure that the fund goes through its. Heard that story before. There's 6 entities now that are basically all bankrupt. And at first was saying the other day that they don't even have enough money. They're going to have to reduce how many people they cover. Yet every single year, the Department of Higher Education receives a budget to be able to support and give help to people who can't afford to go to university. And at first, the stories are scary. That 14 million story where they transferred 14 million into a student's account, the lady blew the money. They didn't even know it was there until the lady blew the money. It was only later on. So the checks and balances, I don't know. I don't know, guys. And in conclusion, if maybe you're wondering, okay, June, you put a lot of issues out there. You're busy complaining nonstop. What is the solution? I think the solution is pretty simple. The national health insurance must not be forced. Number one, the ANC government needs to first establish trust with us as the taxpayer. Ensure, give us a lot of trust and put us at ease. I know it's not possible, but I'm saying it. I'm just putting out a solution, just so people don't think that I'm just about bashing. They need to build trust that when they tax us more for this NHI, the money will go to where it's supposed to go. And right now, the reason why they're forcing us is because they don't want to do the hard work. And how do you build trust? You need to establish partnerships with private sector. They have done it. We are mostly pleased with the service we get from private healthcare. Work with those guys. Public healthcare currently has over 400 hospitals across the country, when private healthcare has, I think, half of that. So you've got something to start with. Every single year, the Treasury allocates a budget towards the health department. Take that money. Get the right people in the room. Clean up, clean house. When you present that to South Africans and say, this is what I've done, now I want to tax you X amount to fund the NHI, there won't be issues. Start first with creating the trust. Build the trust amongst your citizens so that we understand why we're being taxed. We will actually support that idea, because now we know the money that is being taxed is going to where it's supposed to go. You cannot say, we're not going to build the trust, we're going to force you into an NHI system, and you cannot opt in, you cannot opt out, and you're forced into it, and then you think the taxpayers are going to be pleased with that idea. That's just not how it works. Aaron Motsoaledi must do the hard work. You cannot just say, there's no money now, I'm going to implement the NHI. No, you must do the hard work. We've got a healthcare system. We've got a public healthcare system. It exists. Another idea would be for me to say, guys, stop voting for the ANC. Let's get someone else to take over the healthcare system. Let's get a whole new government. Let's get the ANC out. Let's bring them to 3%, which is what they deserve. They deserve 2%, if not 0%, actually. These people have destroyed this country. Let's give them 2%. And let's give other people a chance. But that's far-fetched. The one about building trust is also impossible. That's not how the ANC works. But that's what I would want to see for me to support it. Until then, I'm skeptical. I am not sure. Before you go, please hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Share this video if you found it interesting. And I look forward to seeing you again when I drop the next one.